leaving us with images of this ever-traveling archive. Um, we go next to Ratanamol Singh Johal. Ratan is currently Assistant Director of the International Program at the MoMA. He has recently completed his doctorate at Columbia, where he was looking at the 80s and 90s in India. And his paper today is called Recuperating Ramana, and he'll be speaking specifically about his research into the practice of Ramana Hussain, and thinking also about exhibition making when you're working with a posthumous archive, and in this case, reenactment and restaging of some of her seminal installation works.
So thank you, Nada, and I want to reiterate my thanks to all of the organizers, and of course also to the tech team, our ASL interpreter, and the translators who worked this morning to make the panels legible. Today's presentation really builds on actually what I talked about yesterday in our workshop at NYU. And so for those who attended that, perhaps there's repetition, but also difference. And my attention today is really to, as Nada said, questions of the archive, exhibition, and refabrication in the context of Ramana Hussain's work. On a breezy March day in Bombay in 1995, Ramana Hussain and her close friend, the artist Pushpamala, who's sitting right here, prepared the setting for Hussain's first live performance. The site was the sunken garden at the National Center for the Performing Arts, NCPA as it's well known, located at Nariman Point, the southern tip of Marine Drive, Bombay's iconic seaside boulevard. The garden, a rectangular grassy patch surrounded by a tiled walkway on three sides and a gradually descending staircase doubling up as seating on the fourth, offered an intimate outdoor setting at the heart of this large performing arts complex built on land reclaimed from the sea during the 1970s and 80s. Hussain and her family would soon relocate to this new campus into the NCPA apartments, a residential building on site which subsidized the new cultural institution in part. Her foray into visual art performance within the infrastructural and institutional context of NCPA acknowledges the rich history of the performing arts in India, particularly classical music and dance, while establishing its departure from those modes by abandoning the proscenium and established codes of training, staging, movement, and rhythm in favor of an intimate outdoor setting with minimal props and an invented choreography of gestures and actions. To this first performance, Hussain invited a tight-knit circle of friends and fellow artists, many recognizable faces in that audience, including Nalini Malani, Shireen Gandhi, Pushpamala, Tasneem Mehta, etc., underscoring the tentative nature and vulnerable state of the work, which didn't really belong in any established spaces for visual art in the city. Despite the small audience and the ephemeral nature of the work, the performance has since attained a somewhat mythical status, with younger artists and critics referring to it as the first contemporary art performance in India. The artist's close friend, the critic Kamla Kapoor, recounted that she was unable to bring herself to attend the performance, having heard Hussain's ideas in advance and feeling extreme trepidation for the situation in which the artist was putting herself. Kapoor went on to write about and curate Hussain's work, but for her, this exploration of performance using the artist's own body was unfamiliar and risky, putting her friend in a situation of embarrassing vulnerability. Class conditioning undoubtedly underlaid this trepidation, as Kapoor and Hussain, both bourgeois women, had together inhabited a painting and sculpture-dominated contemporary art sphere that Hussain chose to publicly provoke by transgressing the prevalent modes of artistic practice and, by extension, accepted social codes of conduct. As with most performance-based work, writing about living on the margins today relies on interviews, limited photographic documentation, and rarely exhibited grainy video footage by the filmmaker Simantani Dhuru. My work on Hussein, some of which I presented, as I said, in yesterday's workshop, uses these performance documents, a combination of individual memories and archival fragments, as a writing tool and a mode of reconstruction, existing in tension with the work's iterative, temporally bounded, non-reproductive nature. In the absence of a detailed account of the NCPA performance, its constitutive sequence of actions, gestures, and materials have thus far largely been received and interpreted through a selection of still images. Among these is the iconic image of Hussein with her hair blowing in the wind, mouth wide open, and the cut papaya held in her hands, while the ground is covered in laundry whitening agent appearing blurry in the background. This dramatic moment, as I said, dominates the visual record of the performance and has appeared across recent exhibition and related publications, as well as in the important essay by Jyoti Dhar that was published in Art Asia Pacific in 2014. These sources also characterize Hussein as one of the first performance artists in India, which may well be true within the framework of a performance limited strictly to the sphere of contemporary art, but I resist any argument about an originary moment of interventionist performance in this context. The history of feminist and activist art making in India, particularly in the 1980s and 90s, is marked by a number of performance-based works made by theatre and dance practitioners like Chandralekha, Anuradha Kapoor, Maya Krishna Rao, as well as collaborative productions with visual artists including Nalini Malani, Nilima Sheikh, and Bhupen Khakkar. Specious distinctions between contemporary art performance and experimental works emerging from the closely related fields of activist theatre and contemporary dance prevent a layered and connected understanding of the artistic investments and affiliations of someone like Hussein, herself deeply embedded within an organization of cultural activists, namely Sehmat, the Safdar Hashmi Memorial Trust, which was set up in 1989 in the aftermath of the murder of activist, playwright, and theater actor Safdar Hashmi. Already in 1993, following the carnage and bloodshed on the streets of Bombay, and on the occasion of Sehmat's tour of the multidisciplinary performance program Anhad Garje to that city, Hussein expressed her ideas about the responsibility of artists to uphold secular culture through public engagement. Quote, "It's necessary to emerge from our insular shells, to come together and try and develop symbols of secularism. Moreover, a coming together of artists and viewers is a form of public participation, one that emphasizes the commonality of all, something which the Sufi Bhakti tradition emphasizes." End of quote. Having attended Hussein's performance at NCPA, a reviewer in the Sunday Times of India recognized the work as the hybrid child of fine art and theater, going on to quote the artist's own words to the audience at the performance, in which she explained her attempt through this work, quote, "to look at art as a vehicle for political action, to create a bridge from the seclusion of the studio to the real world, street, and garden," end of quote. Invoking the long-standing trope of performance as liberating the artist and audience from the studio and gallery, Hussein's hybrid form is in dialogue with both folk and activist experiences of performance, including oral storytelling, street theater, and protest, and with postmodern ruptures within the field of visual art production, which shifted the weight of critical practice away from painting and sculpture. The group exhibition, in order to join the political in a historical moment, presented the work of Rumana Hussain as its conceptual anchor. Curated by Swapna Tamhane and Suzanne Titz at the Museum Abteiberg in Germany, it traveled to Bombay in 2015, where it was shown between the CSMVS, the large public museum, and the Goethe Institute. The exhibition marked a significant return for Hussain and her work to the city she had made home, nearly 2 decades after her tragic and untimely death from cancer. Exploring the intellectual themes, material vocabularies, and visual strategies employed across Hussein's practice, the curators assembled 13 other artists from around the world, all identifying as women and born in the decade between 1947 and 1957, whose works offered a range of conceptually related but formally distinct propositions and provocations. Between her death in 1999 and the mounting of this 2013 exhibition, closely revolving around her practice, though notably not a retrospective or a monographic survey, Hussein's work was largely absent from curatorial and critical considerations of postmodernist and contemporary art in India. The 2000s and early 2010s were replete with what have now come to be known as survey exhibitions of Indian art at international venues, showcasing a large number of artists and artworks selected through cursory curatorial research that was mostly conducted by foreign curators during flying visits to the subcontinent. Following her death, her work remained an important reference point for peers, interlocutors, and younger artists venturing into conceptual practices using performance, video, and installation. However, the nature of her practice, its ephemeral aspects, and the difficulty of easily categorizing or co-opting it into the essentializing narratives of these survey exhibitions resulted in a form of marginalization and forgetting. While Hussein's career was relatively brief, the generative nature of her artistic experiments and the urgency of her critical provocations demands close attention and analysis, which has unfortunately, as I said, remained scarce. Her practice has most often been discussed in terms of drastic transformations occasioned by the exigencies of personal and political events. She straddled painting, drawing, performance, video, and installation, turning to the latter three in the mid-90s, following the 1992 demolition of the Babri Mosque in Ayodhya by a right-wing Hindu mob and the horrific anti-Muslim pogroms that ensued in her adopted city of Bombay and other urban areas around the country. As an upper-class Muslim woman with a secular leftist upbringing, Hussein's religious identity was suddenly and violently highlighted in an increasingly polarized and hostile polity. Her breast cancer diagnosis in 1995 created a different kind of awareness of her body's fragility, pushing her artistic practice towards a forceful questioning of majoritarian and masculinist politics in the final years of her life. Analyzing these shifts in her essay, The Courage of Being Romana, published in Art India magazine just before the artist's death in 1999, the preeminent critic Geeta Kapoor articulates the narrative of Hussein's profoundly intertwined personal and professional trajectory as, quote, a story about courage that goes beyond artistic options and brings attention to the discourse around the female body, the first object sign under scrutiny when historical events overtake the conventional forms of existence. And in the case of Romana, as it happens, when she is being riven by personal affliction involving, once again, the female body. End of quote. Hussein's works, particularly in the later years of her life, could indeed be read as attempts to ironically inhabit, critically exploit, and turn inside out the representational tropes and discourses held up by the religious right wing in its denigration of Muslim communities and the Islamic pasts and present of the Indian subcontinent. Within this broader cultural and historical framework rests a critique of the patriarchal, class, and caste-based structure of Indian society. Hussein's installation and performance works often bring together identifiable traces or elusive markers of religion and culture, architectural motifs, dress, script, with narratives, constructed and real, pertaining to the lives of individual subjects. Works like Home Nation, The Tomb of Begum Hazrat Mahal, and Is It What You Think are exemplary of such strategic conflations, unsettling signification and disrupting essentialized readings by gesturing towards the absurdity of stereotypes and sending up any facile interpretations implied by the artist's proper name. I know that I'm running out of time, so I will actually skip over to just this final section where I want to talk very quickly about the fact that here, as we see two works, The Tomb of Begum Hazrat Mahal and A Space for Healing, where very much in the structure of the work, there was a kind of dismantling and remaking from one work to the next, where these iron implements that Hussein collected from markets around South Bombay that were used to allude to a certain script were then taken apart and reused in her final installation that was acquired by the museum in Australia, the Queensland Art Gallery, where this work was invited. And so, in some sense, that reflects, and this is just one example, her attitude towards sort of longevity, towards stabilizing the work, or towards sort of institutional acquisition, as it may be, values and qualities that we sort of think about today, but were very much undercut by the very nature of the practice. And similarly, her performances are iterative in ways that replicate gestures and actions and sequences as well. So I just want to also flag that none of Hussein's works in the 2019 Indian Pavilion display in the Venice Biennale actually acknowledged any sort of refabrication, even though we know that many of these works were lost. And the other interesting point about this is also in the wall label. As you see, they are not double dated, but more than that, in the text contextualizing these works that were made in 1993-94, immediately following the events of Barbary that I talked about before, the work is actually curatorially framed as referring to the divisive politics of land and religion that followed the partition of India in 1947, another gesture that reflects the pressures on the curator, in that case, organizing a pavilion in Venice that is always in collaboration with the Ministry of Culture. So just to end by saying that more than 2 decades after Hussein's death, in an India governed by democratically elected Hindu nationalists and unchecked bigots, her work still stands out for the radicality of its paradoxical and parodic performance of identity. Her absence from the market-fueled contemporary art economy of the 2000s reveals the incompatibility of her conceptual work with object-based circulation, exhibition, and sale. Artists and scholars have remained interested in her important practice, yet deprived of opportunities to access the work and the archive. My research attempts to produce art historical insights from these archival traces, which I hope will support further inquiry, exhibitions, and discourse on Hussein's work, while responsibly historicizing the vital conversations amongst artists and the spirit of formal experimentation that catalyzed these socially and politically interventionist works at the end of the 20th century. Thank you.